Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk again about my off-grid laundry setup because it's been a few years since I've done this. Patrick actually built this setup for me a little over 4 years ago. And when he first set it up, I was using it on a regular basis. And I actually really enjoy doing it. There's just something that just feels good about the natural movement, just being able to do something without having to depend on the grid, at least as far as power goes. But then what happened was with YouTube channel growing and trying to keep up on that and keep up on the comments, and then the big one was the Etsy store. When that started taking off with all the custom orders for skirts and aprons, and then the more items we add, the more busy it has become to keep up on it. This was one of those things that I had to just go back to using my electric machine. Now, I did a video about 2 years ago or so. I showed how the electric side, which is that side behind the camera, and then the off-grid side, which is over here, and then how they work. Because the electric side, most of the year, I can run the washing machine off of our solar power, not the dryer because it's not set up for that. But our clothes get hung up year-round anyway. There are some of those dark, cold days where it's too warm to build a fire, but too wet and muggy to hang the clothes out. And so then I will fall back on the electric dryer at that time. But typically for here, and I've been doing this for 20 years, the clothes get hung up either inside or outside, depending on the weather and the time of the year. Now, why is it, even with as busy as I am I having to fall back onto our off-grid system, and why do we have this? What if it's one of those dark winter days and we don't have enough power built up in our battery bank for me to run the washing machine on solar power, and we're in the middle of another one of our many power outages that we have here where we live, and those usually happen in the winter time when our solar power is low. Well, I needed something I could fall back on for that time. And then the other thing was, what if, no matter how much power we have coming in, my washing machine finally gives up? And that's exactly what happened this time. For the time being, I'm having to fall back on this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how this works. Now, Patrick does have a whole series on how he fixed up these tubs. We bought the tubs brand new. He put drain holes in the middle of it, and then at the bottom of each of those drain holes there's a hose, and that hose comes to a splitter. So I'm going to be putting some pictures here. And so that splitter has on-off switches for either side. So whether it be the rinse tub, which is over here, or the wash tub, which is here. And then that splitter goes to a single flexible hose. And this is long enough. I like it because it's very flexible and I can just roll it up and shove it under the rack here that he built for it. So he has videos on how he built the rack as well. And then when I'm ready to drain either one of the tubs or both, this just gets run outside. Now in the summertime, I'll actually have this run into a watering can so I can spread the water around in different garden areas. We try to make the most of the water that way, but right now nothing out there needs watered, so I just throw it out the door and then let it drain that way, and that works pretty good. You'll see a little curtain that I put around the base of this rack that I thought was really cute. Well, that was a valance I had found at a garage sale. I had initially bought it because I liked the fabric. I thought it would look cute in a skirt. But then I realized it was the perfect length and width to go around the inside of this rack so you can still see the rustic wood, but also so it would hide all those hoses under there so it would look a lot nicer. And then also the cake pan. So I have one of those large glass cake pans right in the middle, directly under the wringer, because as you can see, I'm inside the house. So this is the only way we could really do this, especially in the wintertime, because wintertime, it pretty much rains nonstop, and it would be pointless for me to try to do this outside. There's no good sheltered place outside for me to do this. And and it would be pretty cold. So this is just very convenient. So I'm going to talk you through some of the way I do this. And then another thing that Patrick did when we first set this up in here and realized even with the pan underneath, it still wasn't catching enough water, because the water just pours when you're wringing stuff out through this wringer, which is a 1924 horseshoe wringer. We got this on eBay. I love it. I shopped around quite a while to find one that was in really good working condition with nice rollers on it. These rollers are great. But anyway, when you go to wring something, you know, anyone who's not familiar with this, the water runs straight down. So it would go straight down through the tubs, and even the pan underneath was just, it's a little too shallow. It's that thick, you know, it's a regular like casserole dish, but a large one, and it fits perfectly between the legs of the stand. But still the water was just going everywhere. And so what Patrick did, and I'll put a picture right here, is he made this flashing. He took some flashing and bent it in such a way and shaped it so that it would funnel the water either into the rinse tub or it back into the wash tub. That actually contains quite a bit of the water back into the tubs. Some of it will still drip down, but the pan down there is just the right size and shape to catch any water that does still end up dripping straight down. So, you know, as long as I don't get too carried away with my agitator, I can keep it pretty dry in here and not have much of a mess. So it's just a matter of learning how you can actually have this set up inside if you just set it up right. So the agitator is also, this one is an antique. This is just four years away from being classified as antique, because antique is anything that's 100 years old or more. So this is 1924, and I can't remember, I did a video just on this, but this agitator, maybe 1940s, it's made specifically for agitating the clothes off grid. Although I have a washboard, I don't actually use it. I find the agitator makes it so easy to do this, and yes, there are things that I will scrub, but when I do that, let's say the sock, that's something I would do more like this. I just scrub like this if needed. Now for things that might have, and this will apply whether I'm using an electric machine or using this setup, something that might have bad stains, especially grease stains, those I will treat the day before directly with soap. Dish soap is one of my favorite things to use for grease because it's made to really cut grease. But you can also use bar soap and just rub it on there hard. And I find it best just to let it sit overnight. You can scrub, you know, rub it into the fabric a little bit and then let it just sit overnight and then throw it in there and wash it. And then of course you can do that same method where you just scrub like that. But a washboard's a good idea too. Like I said, I have one. It's hanging up right over there. And that was bought long before this setup was actually. I don't like to try to demonstrate and talk at the same time because it's just, you know, it's just a little bit too much. But I can take both hands and just really agitate it. These clothes have actually been soaking in here for a while. I found ways to make it so it doesn't take me as much time. It's the washing to me doesn't take as long as the wringing and rinsing, but I actually really enjoy the process. So what I usually do is I'll put the clothes in there, I'll fill it up with water. Patrick actually has a hose set up for me on that side, just behind the washing machine, that I can drag out and fill directly from here. I add some of my homemade laundry soap to it before I start putting the water in there. And then I'll do a really thorough agitation, making sure the water and the soap get worked well into the clothing, and then I'll walk off and go work on something else. I'll come back in, agitate it some more, go do something else and come back in. So it actually is soaking and agitating for quite a while by the time I finally get around to going to the rinse cycle. Now I haven't put any water yet into my rinse tub, but I'll be doing that here shortly. So, but I want to agitate this some more, a few more times before I do that process. Some of the things you have to be careful with is anything like this right here, or any of your shirts that have plastic buttons, is if they go through there sideways through your wringer, it's gonna destroy the button. I don't think I've destroyed any buttons yet, but if you do it right, you make sure the buttons go through flat, or even make sure that they're folded between the fabric. That's a good way to get that through there. Now when you're talking about like Patrick's work jeans, where he's got the suspender buttons, those ones are really, really difficult to get through there. So I find it best to put the leg of the jeans in and wring those clear up to the top and then take it back out again. The other option you can do is your wringers are going to come with knobs up here where you can adjust the tension and make it so that it's wider so you can get thicker things through there. But it's just a matter of being careful with anything when you're talking about buttons, snaps, that kind of stuff. But other than that, you know, towels, socks, anything, t-shirts, those things are just so easy to go through there, wringing them out to go into the rinse. You want to get a lot of that soapy water out of the clothes before they go into the rinse tub. But when I'm done rinsing, which I use the same method as you can see in this photo here, so I got the rinse tub, I'll use the agitator on that side as well to get the clean water working through there and getting the soap out. And then when I pull it out, I then run it through the wringer twice. That's usually the best thing. And usually after the first one, you can fold that up again, and then it will also make it a little bit thicker, so when it goes through there, it'll push out even more water. So the thing that I do when, let's say I want to do 2 loads back to back, and I just want to use the same water. So you start off with your cleaner clothes, the cleaner items, and then wash the dirtier things last. Suppose you're going to start off washing just your kitchen cloths, you know, your hand towels, your dish rags, those kind of things. You wash those things first, then you put in your dirtier clothes, you know, like your work pants and whatever. Just, I mean, whatever it is you have, and then you wash those second. So if that's the case, so I can make the most of my water, what I have here is, when we got the dog crate that we have now, I didn't need the divider that came with it. So what I did was I took some pliers and unbent some of this a little bit, and this will fit perfectly over the wash tub like so. The way it hooks over the edge of the tub, it stays in place really well. So that way, when I've got like my skirts, those are really a pain because there's a lot of fabric and they're long, especially if I'm doing one of the flannel skirts, like the one I'm wearing right now is a flannel skirt. And you know, there's a lot of fabric there. It's kind of heavy, especially when it's full of water. I need something to lay that on. Otherwise, it's just going to fall into the dirty soapy water. And also the same thing on the other side. You can see I have another rack. I don't even remember what that one came from, but it just happened to fit in that tub at the right in the inside. So that will keep it from, you know, if it's something long, that will help keep it from falling into back into the rinse water and getting wet again. But normally for longer items, what I do is, as I'm putting through, I'll grab this other side and pull it up as I continue to turn this handle, and I'll pull it back this way to keep it from falling into the water. So I don't always use that rack. I only add that if I really, really have to. Most things I can simply just grab and then do this, bring it back over here, and then run it through again. And I can throw it in my laundry basket and then go hang it up, or even use my dryer if I need to. In that case, I can just toss it straight into the dryer from here. And then back to the draining thing. So the hoses, you want to make sure these are off before you start. You know, if you're going to set your system up like this, and again, don't forget to check out the playlist if you want to see how Patrick built this and put it together. Then you want to make sure that the nozzles are off before you fill up your tubs. And then when you're done, I find it best to drain this one first to at least start draining this one first before I start draining the rinse tub. So usually when I know I'm done with this side, I just go ahead and immediately start draining it. And again, the hose gets tossed outside. And then I'll keep working with the rinse stuff and then running it through. And by that point, this just stays here. When I'm done, then that's when I'll start draining that rinse water. But then when I'm done draining them, that's when I shut the nozzles back off again, because I'm afraid I will forget the next day when I go to fill up the tub. And even though it's just the two of us, I find it's just best for me if I can just go ahead and do a smaller load each morning and then just get it done rather than letting it build up for a couple of days. It does take up a lot more of my time than just throwing it in the washing machine, but it is an enjoyable process that gets you moving. And again, it's just something about that natural movement of working with the clothes. And you're moving around, you're using actually all parts of your body. Even if you are never worried about power outages, or maybe you got a brand new washing machine, you don't see it breaking down. Something like this, having some kind of setup ready on hand, you know, it could even be one of those miniature washing machines. Something as a backup plan I highly recommend figuring out something. Even if it's just having a couple of buckets and a plunger, just an old plunger. When I first started doing this, all I had was a plunger for a sink, not one would use on the toilet, and I was using that to wash the clothes, to agitate the clothes with, until I found this one here. And I love this thing, but you can also buy brand new ones. In fact, I will find one and I will link to it down below. Same thing with ringers. You can find brand new ones, but my thing was I wanted something that was just very classic, that would make good decor when it's not being used, but also be useful when I need it. So that's why I went with these methods here. And then Patrick built the rack and gave it that rustic look just to match the whole setup. And I just love it. I think it's great on both sides. I love the classic rustic decor, as well as how useful it is, especially now that I really need it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you found this helpful. Maybe it'll give you some ideas of what you might want to do for yourself if you're thinking about at least having a backup system, or if you're thinking about going fully off-grid, and then this is just one way that you can do it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.